Friends and watchers of Illusion, welcome to another Delboy film retrospective and unboxing. And this one's come about because, well, basically I do a chat with Ian Hill, The Ramblings, one I definitely recommend that you go and watch and subscribe and like and see the massive amount of content my friend does. But we have a chat on a Wednesday, and we were talking over a couple of weeks, really, where a couple of films were talked about. One of them was Biggles, which I've already done a retrospective of, and the other one was this film. And this film has many, many memories for me. Um, Basically, it's got memories because of the actor that's in it. It's got memories because of the producer. It's got memories because of the director, the music, which basically I think anybody who's seen this film will recognize sort of like the theme song to it, although it is from the public domain, the actual music. And you're probably all thinking, when are you going to get to what you're actually talking about? And we're talking about this particular film, and it's called Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze. And basically, I've seen this film hundreds of times. I saw it first at the cinema during Movie Club, which is something that I've mentioned several times. In the 70s, a lot of kids would go to the cinema, and it would be part of a kids club, and we used to have one on a Saturday morning, and your parents would drop you off and you'd see some films, usually a double feature, a lot of Disney stuff, but also a lot of fantasy science fiction stuff. And for a one-off price, you'd get your popcorn, some drink. You'd be watching some cartoons, some little mini serials from way back in the day, and then a double feature. And like I say, I'd have seen this film as part of a double feature. And I just had a whale of a time. And then later on, I've seen it on VHS tape when we used to rent videos from little video outlets before even Blockbusters was around. I'd actually bought it in an after sale VHS tape that we were able to buy in the mid to late 80s and all through the 90s. I did have it on DVD, but I've never had it on Blu-ray, and this is where I really need to say a big thank you. You may have noticed that I pulled off a little stick it that was on it, and it's got there, thought I'd treat you to this, seeing as you don't have it on Blu-ray. And that scribble is from my friend Denny. Denny, thank you so much. He sent me a huge box of TV stuff that he was basically getting rid of because he's got on Blu-ray. And, you know, we've had many chats, but he would have watched the chat as well that I did with Ian. And he knew that I didn't have this on Blu-ray, and this is one of the first gifts I've ever had through the post. And I've seen so many people, you know, get gifts through the post and stuff. My real first gift was from Wee Bob Art, who did a lovely picture for me. He actually drew it and printed it out, and I'm going to get that framed. So this is really sort of like this, you know, a second sort of like gift I've had, and all in the same year, and it cheers me up no end to receive something like that. But getting back to Doc Savage, what can I say about Doc Savage? Well, it came out in 1974, and it came out actually in the same month as Jaws. So don't expect that this film was a success, because it was not. It actually close to bombed. But it's got such a pedigree, really. It's directed by Michael Anderson. Now, that's a very famous director. He's most associated with the film The Dam Busters, a fantastic film in the 50s based on a famous war a part of the war where major bombers were hired to bomb a dam using a special bomb. And of course, that's a fantastic film. But he's equally done other films. Logan's Run, which I've mentioned before, Around the World in 80 Days. He's also been associated with a TV show that I've got on Blu-ray, The Martian Chronicles. So Michael Anderson is such a pedigree, but it's probably the other name that's associated with this. This is where he was a producer, and that's George Pal. Oh my God, when we talk about George Pal, he's done When Worlds Collide. I've recently bought Houdini. One of the most famous films he's done is War of the Worlds. But he's done The Time Machine, The Seven Faces of Dr. Lao. Oh my God, the list just goes on. And this was the last produced film by George Pal. And it's far from his best, but that doesn't make it any lighter in regards to my fondness for the film, because a film doesn't have to be a gigantic hit of a film, you know. Doc Savage was never that, but it's a pet project of George Pal. He bought the rights basically of Doc Savage, which is a pulp magazine book from the 30s, which was held in licensing hell for years, and was going to be a film in the 60s, but never happened. And it finally got the green light, and the film was made, and basically I loved it as a kid. As a kid, it's a fantastic film. As an adult, and looking at it now, you could either look at it as a okayish film, or you can look at it as a fun film, or you can look at it as, that's not what I remember. Oh my God, it's an absolute disaster. But basically what we have to remember here is that Doc Savage is that an adventurer type of character. We've seen them lots and lots of times in the 80s done incredibly well. Alan Quatermain comes to mind. Indiana Jones for definite. And that template was honed in the 80s, but this is the 70s, so that template's not there. So George Pal, who loved the books, noticed that a reprint of the book in the 60s sold over 11 million copies for a reprint. And he thought to himself, 11 million people bought a reprint of a comic from the 30s. I want that sort of audience. And then basically started to work on a script, and the final product came out in the 70s. So what's it about? The best way for me really to talk about it is it's a revenge story, really. Doc Savage he's that sort of well brought up type character. He's a scientist, he's a do-gooder, he's muscular, he's the man you want to be, a thrill seeker, been in the army, and in that army he had a unit that was called, I think it's called the Fabulous Five in this, and those characters are in it. And because it's such a pet project of George Pal, most of the tropes that you get in the comic are actually in it. So all of the dialogue and language and the setting and all that sort of stuff is all here. Doc Savage has a fortress of solitude, bit like Superman. He lives on the 86th floor of the Empire State Building. He's got gadgets galore, you know, because he's part scientist, very much a doctor, which is why he's called Doc Savage. Where the Man of Bronze comes from, I'm not quite sure. He's definitely tanned, and you could turn around and say he's bronze because of that. But there are scenes in the film where he's shot at with a gun and they hit his chest, you know, and you can see the marks in his clothes, but he's alive. But I don't think his skin is made of bronze. But he's definitely that type of man. Now, there are several other reasons why I love this film, and most of it is based on the main character, Doc Savage, who was played by Ron Ely. Now, Ron Ely, to me, is Tarzan. If anybody has ever seen the TV series Tarzan from the 70s, will know exactly what I mean. He was the quintessential Tarzan of the 70s. Don't get me wrong, I've seen all the films with Johnny Weissmuller and all of those, and they're absolutely fantastic. But to have an episodic Tarzan show that was shown at sort of like lunchtime on a Sunday as a kid, brilliant. Watched it every week. Absolutely fantastic. So as I was saying, Doc Savage is sort of a revenge film. It starts off knowing that his father has been killed in mysterious circumstances. And he goes out sort of like a revenge type thing. While he was finding this information out, he headed back to the Empire State Building, and an assailant tries to kill him. Now, this assailant does incredibly bad. Although firing a bullet shot at Doc Savage, it misses him almost entirely, because Doc Savage is so rich that he's got glass that's distorted. So if you aimed at him directly, it would miss him by about 4 foot because of this distorted glass. Doc Savage is so powerful that he chases the assailant across the skyscrapers. The assailant dies, and we find out that this assailant is from some tribe in the tropics, and has got a mysterious snake emblem on its chest. But the other thing that made me, that I thought was really, really funny, when he goes back to his apartment, he gets the bullet out from the wall. It actually hit the wall, and as he uses his fingers to pinch it out of solid brick, and you see all of the clothes rip as he ripples with his muscles to pull this bullet out. It's camp, but that's the problem with the film. Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, all of those films have comedy in it, but this film doesn't know whether it needs to be serious or camp, and it's 50-50. And I think that's where one of the problems lies with the George Pal edition, because if it had chosen one side or the other, I think it would have been better received. But anyway, finding out where this tribe assailant comes from, he brings across with him his 5 buddies from the army, which were a unit that they worked together, and traipse across, finding this hidden tribe, and find out actually that the reason Doc Savage's father was killed is because he was going to acquire the land that this tribe live on, and there are pools of molten gold in the land where this tribe live. And there are certain baddies that want Doc Savage dead so that this land becomes free. And that's basically what the story is. It's a revenge film, but it's got action, it's got adventure, there's romance in it, all of those tropes, so there's a lot there for kiddies. And if you want to look at it from a retrospective point of view, then I think it sort of holds up, but it's cheesy. It really is cheesy. But from my point of view, it sort of like gives me that fuzzy feeling, that feel-good feeling. I remember watching the film being re-shown on TV on certain bank holidays, on a Sunday, during summer holidays from school. And so it puts me in a comfort place. But your mileage from that might sort of like be a bit different. But the other thing I think that most people remember about Doc Savage is that it had music by Don Black, Frank DeVol, and John Philip Sousa. Now, you might not recognize those names. John Philip Sousa did military sort of like marches. Don Black did lyrics, working very closely with people like John Barry. And Frank DeVol is basically the person that did most of the music throughout the film. But it's got a very sort of like famous song about Doc Savage, but it's put to the music of John Philip Sousa, so it's public domain. You know, it even starts off, "Have no fear, the man of bronze is here," you know, and then it goes into a march. And I remember that tune even now, 45 plus years later. So it's definitely an earworm. So I'm just going to take this little stick it note off, and we'll just look at the inside of the casing. So like I said, it's a gift. I've not opened it. I've seen it many times. I've watched it as a Blu-ray rip the other day. So I know exactly what to get, and I know exactly what the picture quality is like. So we've taken the cover off, so I'll just show you that now. Look, you can see an artist depiction of Ron Ely. You look on the back. That's a very, very famous sort of like photographic artist depiction of Ron Ely. Very nice there. Tells you about the film. Very, very few extras on this. It's a general audience rating. It was definitely a G, PG. You get very little inside some of this Blu-ray. It came out at a time where you didn't get too many extras, but you get a picture. There you are. And do I recommend it? Absolutely. If you've seen the film and you want to reminisce about it, it definitely fits in your collection, but it does fit into a sort of like the cheesy area of your collection. It's definitely one of those, if you've got kids, show it to them while you're watching it. You'll smile and smirk, and they'll be willing Doc Savage on to win and all of that sort of stuff. There's fight sequences and everything. From my point of view, when it came out at the cinema and I saw it at Cinema Club, I used to collect Marvel comics. And one thing that Marvel used to do is buy licensing on the cheap. And they had a magazine line called Curtis Comics. Now it's still Marvel, but it's under a moniker of Curtis Comics. And they had the license for about a year and a half, couple of years anyway. And they did a version of the film, some new stories, and they even started to bring Doc Savage into the Marvel universe in much the same way as the Marvel do now in the films. Doc Savage teamed up with Spider-Man famously in a giant-sized comic, which I've got as well. So I've only got a couple of things of Doc Savage. I've got that one first issue of Curtis Comics, and I've also got a number of Doc Savage comics where he teamed up with Marvel superheroes. Specifically, I've got the Spider-Man one. So I'm just going to round it up by saying, fantastic. Thank you so much to my friend Denny. Thanks to Ian and all of the people that chat to us in his chat on a Wednesday, for bringing back so many memories. Absolutely wonderful. It's 112 minutes. It's a bit long. But I think kids will get some enjoyment out of it if you watch it as a family type film. And so with that, I'm going to say salute. I hope you enjoyed this little retrospective. Like I say, you won't have learnt too much about the film. I'd rather you watch it yourself. But I think I've given you some insights into the director, the producer, the music, where it came from, and definitely some history about where it fits in with me. So salute, on to the next one, and thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.